Hey everyone, good morning or midday or evening, wherever you are. Thanks for joining this webinar, but it's a bit of an untypical webinar. Also the first time we try something like this. I think we're all a bit bored with 56 slides in 45 minutes. So we have no slides. We only have the three of us to discuss how we can make an innovative impact and how we can scale advocacy in B2B. And I'm happy to be joined with two dear colleagues in the field, which I've known for a long time already. So they will introduce themselves in a minute in a bit more detail. But John Lindsay, for example, I think the first time we met was actually at IMEC. It was still called differently at that point in time. And you were a bit like my teacher, actually, at the time. Sorry if it sounds strange, but it's true. Basically learning how to scale B2B SaaS businesses so it fits right within the topic, and also how to help with fundraising, etc. We did raise funds afterwards, so it helped. Thank you, John. Kari, I actually met at SaaStr, Paris. I think you were still at Oracle at the time, like the director of the customer advocacy program, or you had a lot of knowledge around that topic. So that always stuck in my head. So it's great to have both of you with me today to talk about scaling advocacy in B2B, because the landscape is changing drastically. There is a lot of consolidation going on, etc. So happy to touch on these subjects together with you. But I'm sure you can give a better representation of yourself. John, maybe you can start, and then we can dive into the conversation.
Sure. I'm a Canadian based here in Belgium for the last, 20 some odd years. I have a passion for finding elegant ways to grow companies and eliminate the waste in the process. And advocacy became very important right from day one when starting to scale up my first tech startup back in Canada, which was a winery, actually. And it started to get more systemized back in around 2004 and 5, when you had the launch of LinkedIn and Crossing, or what was OpenBC, both of which were clients of mine. So advocacy became more formalized since those days, and today it's absolutely essential in terms of growing a business in B2B, and we'll get more into that as we talk.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, John. Kari.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity, Koen. It's great to be here with great minds. Also with you, John. We have an indirect connection through the Mega Deals consultancy. I'm a Finn based here in Stockholm, and I have experience from the customer and employee advocacy perspective from the large corporates like Oracle, where we had launched a platform and got it internally running for thousands of customer success managers across the EMEA. But also in a smaller scale-ups, the American Proof Analytics marketing mix modeling company. Then in Comentelli, I was running the ambassadors network of professors and thought leaders within the competitive intelligence domain. And now currently at the DeskNow, we are activating our customers. So very happy to be here and see if we get the audience as well engaged in our debate. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Yeah, indeed. Talking to the audience now, do feel free to interrupt us. I know everyone says it in every webinar, but we mean it. And just interrupt us during the conversation. Don't wait for a potential Q&A, because it will be much more of an open discussion, an open chat. So feel free to join that chat at any point in time. Okay, cool. Let's start, I would say. So where do we start? I remember us talking with the three of us about, should we focus on quality or quantity, basically, do we talk about mass scaling? I know you have a strong opinion on that, Kari. Maybe we can start with that, and then we can fill in John.
Yes. So I have two sort of opinions. They might sound contrary, but it's about working smart, not getting a burnout and working hard. So the first opinion is that we should be anti-spam. Also, the Google and GDPR and new legislation there in Netherlands, actually, where you are based, as I understand, in the Benelux region, there is coming even more strict regulations in other countries as well. So all the spamming and these affiliate networks and desperate customer testimonials that look like fake, people don't buy them anymore because it sounds like the same in every single website, right? So the distribution and scaling is difficult in that sense. On the other hand, there is some theories, mathematical models, if you can Google and research them, and some of them say that humans actually cannot have more meaningful connections than 150, but that's the ultimate limit. And it comes from the sociology and the research from the ancient times. So this goes against what has been preached a long time in the digital marketing community about creating the personal brand and having tens of thousands of followers. Like 10 years ago or 20 years ago, maybe it was popular to speak about clout, that when you were like a thought leader with 1 million followers, and influencers still today speak about that. I'm propagating a little bit against that, saying that it's better to have micro communities, 150 strong opinion persons, let's say, in JPAC, and other 150 in North America, and other 150 in EMEA, and then be relevant to the core, to these small communities. So these might sound a little bit contrarian, but nevertheless, more we can be relevant, higher is our match. That's how I see about it. And we can continue this more in detail, but I just want to open the floor that don't spam and don't get vanity likes and vanity followers. They just shoot you to leg.
Yeah, definitely interesting. I think when we obviously run an employee advocacy program within our company, but also for other large and international brands, and their expectations are always like, oh yeah, we will get everyone aboard here and they will do all this funky stuff for us, and then the results will come in. But actually what you say is right. It's much better to focus on a smaller group of people and really work with them and really try to drive engagement with them. And we actually started out as a customer advocacy platform when we met Kari. That was my pitch to you back in the time. And we have seen that a lot of these platforms are a bit struggling just because of that, because you can't expect that all your customers have intention to become advocates for you or your brand, you know. So it's already a subset. So if you then from that subset only also have like a smaller pool that's really active, and typically it can be a very small pool in customer advocacy, and you also don't really have that direct connection with them, it becomes a difficult story. So what I'm seeing in the market today is that these companies are struggling. They're focusing more and more on the employee side of things because the connection with the employees typically is stronger, or they can see what their peers, their other employees are doing, etc. But someone who's a big fan of NVIDIA, for example, might not care that much about another big fan in Austria, for example, you know, so because there is no link between them. So that's one. And I also thought the other point you spoke about was very interesting. Like, and I was wondering, like, how do you look at websites? You know, it needs to be clear, it needs to be real. So how do you look at websites such as G2, etc.? Because I really believe in them. On the other hand, I know how the system works. It's quite legit, or it's even legit. But I also see how other people are gaming the system. So it's a bit difficult because these websites need to be completely independent, but on the other hand, they have a business model as well. You know, so interesting to hear takes on that.
Well, I think the point about being very selective on your audience is essential, and it gets back to go-to-market strategies, right? So, you know, a lot of mistakes we see in scale-ups at mega deals is that you know, companies are targeting everybody and anybody, and the art of scaling is to take an ideal customer profile, meaning very selective in a finite market, and get to know that sector really well. And that finite market might be a couple of hundred companies in a particular, you know, space. And if you are advocating to that area, it's because you can relate to them, to the context of their business. You understand the challenges that they are having, and you're able to talk with them from their side of the table. And advocacy is very much about the context of the industry, not about feeds and speeds. So, with advocacy, it's really talking with a passion about the topic and understanding the people that you're in your audience and being able to relate with them in ways that they can relate to and see you as somebody, oh, you understand my pains, and I'd like to talk more with you. And eventually, at some point, you might get down to feeds and speeds. Yeah. So I think, the whole idea of advocacy is an emerging skill, which links into social selling. A lot of people have not perfected it. We're learning all the time. But getting into a topic, getting into a sector, and talking about it in a broader context gives you a platform to then help them out when it comes to actually selling something.
Yeah, true. Maybe interesting question to the audience, like maybe just answer in the chat, like one, if you're already using or used an employee advocacy or customer advocacy platform, and two, if you're just looking into it, just to get a better understanding on where the audience is. Just feel free to leave it in the chat, one or two. Then maybe we can deep dive a bit more on that specific topic. Okay, interesting. So only this morning I received a comment from a well-known social media trainer. It meant in a good way, by the way. And he just said, like, I see a lot of video testimonials from our company passing by. And these are the advocates, basically, or the faces of the brands that they represent. But then their own social media savviness isn't always that great. Sometimes they're just classically posting without personalization and all the good stuff that you need to do. So two things there. I think one, as you said, John, training is essential, or you need to have those social selling skills to be able to do it in the perfect way. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on how we can improve on that. And secondly, and a bit unrelated, we have quite a bit of more typical use cases as well. For example, dealer advocacy, where it's normal that you will not see that on LinkedIn because those people are using other forms of interactions. They might be providing their resellers with assets through our platform, so you don't see it on social media, or they might be providing them with how-to guides, etc., or collateral that they can use in sales conversations, or they might for example, give a lot of input to the company. So it's normal, I think, that I get such a reaction. I just have it this morning, so it's still fresh. Still trying to digest it. But it's, you also have to know the use case. Context, as always, is everything, obviously. But on that first point, and that's also something that we will be focusing on more and more, is adding educational features in the platform, so that community hub is not just, okay, do this or do that for us, but also like, hey, you can learn stuff here, you can know how to become a better social.
That's a really, really useful thing to do, and something we're doing at Mega Deals. We do something called community. So we run it once a month. It's about an hour and a half. I think we've reduced it now to an hour. We do 15 minutes where you might have a guest to talk about how they have discussed their go-to-market challenges in scaling up, what worked, what didn't work, and so on. And then we open it up. We have little exercises, and these are all customers. Mm-hmm. They're from all over the world, and they share their experiences on what has worked and not worked from them. So we're all learning. So none of us could claim to be the experts. And we focus each community session on a certain theme, so last week was on ideal customer profile selection, right? A few weeks before it was looking at your profile on LinkedIn and what are some of the signals that you can use to highlight who you are and how to relate and how to nudge, how to nudge people without necessarily saying, hey, can I connect and sell to you? What are the techniques to get to know people without having to put them off and say no, and burn a bridge. Now we actually have something called burnt bridge number. So, we share these things. And I think your idea of doing that for your community is very useful. And if it's live and fresh with people who are sharing their experiences and challenges.
Yeah, the idea, and again, it still has to be validated. But the idea is...
Fully agree on that. Just adding my 5 cents is that we can consider it as a push communications versus pull communication. Or like you need two to dance tango, right? So I would recommend that they would be together.
Yeah, but
that's the point. It's a two-way thing, right? When you're doing advocacy, right? There is also a push and there is a reciprocal. So the idea of nudges and comments and likes and so on is how you're giving back. Yeah. The other is broadcasting. How do you broadcast? And I think looking at different techniques. So, we use a range of techniques. You've seen some of them. We take companies as part of our advocacy that we really like, that are doing really change gaming technologies and climate tech, and we'll do a profile on them. And we usually send it to the company to approve before we post, so that gives some kind of engagement with them, and then we post it. We do different things. Sometimes we take the faces of our rainmakers and we proactively syndicate messaging into the market through a cross-media channel. So that's another way of proactively promoting advocacy, taking the face of your thought leader and doing it across channel, not just in LinkedIn, to create a critical mass of awareness around certain topics. And again, not feeds and speeds, but on certain themes, so that your community of people say, oh, that's somebody who really understands what we do. I'd like to talk to Koen because he talks about this whole space, and I really, I need to understand more how we can do better.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. What we also see, and it ties in nicely, I think, is what we have coined, I think, as social share fatigue, which kicks in a lot of advocacy programs, and that's what Kari was saying as well. It's all push. So if you get, even if it's your interest field, etc., but the only question you get is like, hey, share this on a mobile phone 2 days later, share that and share this. You get some numbers. After a while, people really get fed up. So we got that feedback a lot from customers.
But it can also lead to the spam feeling that people are just sharing some functionalities like bots. And I would prefer that more than two to tango. Ask your audience to give you photos of their parties, of their success stories, and so on. So it doesn't become, the worst case, what I have seen, ABM programs, business development programs, demand generation programs, you name it, it's always the same stuff with the new name and new clothes. The emperor doesn't have clothes story for the children. If you know that the emperor was naked and only one child dared to say openly that the emperor is naked. So this is a classic, I would say, American, Martech, blah, 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 propaganda. And people choose the easy way because the difficult way is difficult. So difficult way means that you actually care about your customers. You actually have a dialogue. You actually engage them instead of asking them to spam your company message further to their followers, so that you have that real dialogue ongoing.
Yeah. No, you make a very good point. I think that's one of the dangers of traditional account-based marketing. It's systemized, and it's one message to everybody. It's automated, and it's not really taking into account the audience that you're speaking with and engaging in a relevant way. And, I think liking, for example, on people's profiles is interesting, but actually going in and actually reading their articles and giving your feedback on what it means to you and translating in terms that means something to you is a kind of authentic engagement. And that takes effort.
Yeah.
It takes effort. It is not an easy way through doing advocacy.
No, and just to back it up with numbers, we see... Luckily, we didn't start out, and Kari knows this very well, as a social sharing tool. Most of the people or companies will say we're only advocacy platform, but basically they're sharing tools, which is fine. There is a need for that. But we started out as a community platform. And I think the social share use case was like the 7th or 8th big feature we developed. So that community DNA is still within Ambassify, still within the company. So that means we have a lot of, as you said, Kari, pull campaigns like polls, surveys, ideation campaigns, net promoter scores, employee net promoter scores, and that differentiates us a lot within the landscape. So to give you a practical example, I'm sitting in one of our offices here now. It's another background this time. So that was crowdsourced basically by our own employees. So we gave them a few options. And then they could add their own options through an ideation campaign, and other employees could vote. And obviously there was like a budget range. If they would have said like, hey, I would like to rent the Hilton top floor for 1 year, we would not have done it. But the cool thing now is they really have the feeling like, hey, they listened, and maybe it wasn't my location, my preferred location, but it was an open voting. And now we are sitting in these offices, and yeah, you know, it really feels like they're really listening to me. And we do it with everything that we do in the company. Like, how should team meeting formats be structured? Do we even need meetings, etc.? So we always ask for feedback. And when you then act, that's the core thing that a lot of larger organizations are having a hard time to do, but we can as a smaller company act on that. Then you will see when you ask them for push stuff, the results will be much better, and they will be much more happy to do it in a genuine way, because it's like, oh yeah, I have this two-way relationship with the company, and of course I do it, and they will be personalizing their text, etc., more and more. So it's a win-win for everyone. But getting people to do that, and then the adoption comes into mind, which might be an interesting subject.
Well, I think this is why you need to get to the core. What is the purpose of advocacy? Why do you want to do it? And for me, I know why I want to do it. I'm looking at a way to augment impact at scale. I want to, how can you take voices that count and enable them and augment them in a frictionless way? You know, how can you do that? And how can you then also measure, are you making a difference and making an impact? So looking for these different tools to enable the ones that do have a voice and do have something to say, it's really important. And if they're really connected to a purpose, they will automatically translate your messages that you have prepared into terms that they understand and authentically communicate them. But they need to be connected with that purpose. If they're doing it just for routine, or if they're just doing it just to get the next sale as a transactional approach, they should not be involved with advocacy. They will have the burnt bridge rate going through the roof, and they will be shut down from your social channels. People will not want to engage and talk with them. So it's really important that that connection takes place, in my mind, at the very heart of it. And this is the reason why I'm involved with this topic, with you, Koen, but also with the mega deals and with companies like Zeta, to be able to get these enabling tools to broadcast messages that connect in an authentic way that really resonate with the audiences.
Yeah.
I'm very happy, John, you took this up, because I finally have a contrarian opinion, so we get a little bit debate here.
Oh yeah.
But before I say anything critical, I just wanted to highlight to Koen's point that how do you get people to engage and so on. And there, kudos to John and John's team, that when you say that you are making profiles, I would say that it doesn't matter if you have 10,000 or 10 million impressions or views or clicks or likes. It doesn't even matter if you have 10,000 people in your advocacy or ambassador or whatever database or email nurturing list, if those 10,000 people or whatever amount are inactive. So it becomes more crucial to understand the personality type of this person with tools like Crystal Knows Me or some other ones that are out there, disc profiling and so on. Who are the, you know, there is the team about the color persons and so on in psychology. We can criticize those things, but who is the active ones? Who are the curious ones? Who are the first movers? We need those in the beginning to spread the word. And then we need the other kind of people, the intellectuals, the critics and others, to keep the discussion going after those first ones have opened the gates, the floods to come in of new interested people. So it would be very important to profile that audience and see that not the same message goes to everybody who already in the party, so to say. One way to understand this is to study that how do the nightclubs work? How does the fashion business work? How do the people where the people are queuing to some event work? what is the logic there, and how it was even before social media. But then coming to the criticism with the John approach, I am hardcore salesperson. So I would think that customer advocacy is ultimately about money. It needs to move the needle. It needs to get the cash flow in. If we just create the vanity audiences, impressions, and likes, then it's very expensive hobby. That's my opinion. And when I say the customer advocacy is about sales, it's that people like to buy from people. The clients trust better other clients than they trust the sales reps. Therefore, we need to harness the power of clients to accelerate sales.
Yeah. So
for sure.
So we're talking about references in a way as well, then, Kari, right? So what are your thoughts on references? Let me share my thought on it. So obviously we got asked a lot, like, hey, we'd like to call with this or that company, you know, it's in the same space, and we would like to hear from them indeed, and not your sales reps. That's absolutely normal. I only do it, and maybe that's like a personal thing, at the very end of a sales funnel, because I don't want to be the company where there is a great reference call and I have to speak to one of my best customers 6 months later or 2 months later and say like, oh yeah, but they didn't buy from us. Because for me, it gives the impression that it might give them doubts as well. Like, yeah, but it's a similar company. Why didn't they buy? So we do reference calls, but always at a very late stage when we know we're the preferred supplier, when we know it's like the final hurdle, no legal stuff that comes up, etc. So interesting to hear your guys' take on it, because I think it's a fascinating topic.
Maybe, John, you want to comment first?
Yes,
I have some
first
stark
of all,
opinions, but
at the
let's
end of
give
the
the floor
day,
for you first.
at the end of the day, you do want to get a sale. But if your purpose is to advocate in such a way that you say, and at the end of it, you know, call me now so we can have a sales conversation at the end of your nice little bit of thought leadership, it's a little bit aggressive. You know, it's like if I go to the gym and I see you the first time and say, hi, I'm John. You want to work out together? You know, you don't know who the hell I am. It's a bit strange. But you say, hey, you know, good pull there, or, you know, a thumbs up. And after multiple visits, you know, we sort of nod and say, hey, you know, that's a nice technique you have there. Can you share that with me? It's an evolution of a discussion over time. So it's not that it's not about sales, it's about how you get there and how you establish a rapport and reputation and trust to open up the conversation. There's one thought leader, Penny Power, who co-founded one of the original networking platforms, eAcademy. You might have remembered it. Just about 4 weeks ago, she once mentioned that never has she ever posted anything with the idea of getting a sale. None of her work has been posted to get a sale. But in talking about her domain, which happens to be love in business, a lot of people come to her and they end up doing business with her. But it's not because she's posting with the idea of getting a sale. So I think it's finding the right balance between advocacy and selling. At the end of the day, we do want to do business. And it's about being discoverable. You want to be discoverable around a certain topic. So being present and relevant makes you discoverable, so that you can then engage. And then engage eventually, hopefully, leads to maybe some kind of transaction.
Yeah, and we get to you, Kari, for the maybe other opinion. But indeed, you know, like the easiest sales are just people that you don't even know that well, but that just were in a situation that they saw all this content about a certain topic. You need to claim a topic, right? And they say like, oh yeah, that guy seems to know something about it, sending a LinkedIn message. Those deals, I think the closing time on them is X. No, it's divided by 2 by a typical sales length, you know, because the trust is already there. You don't need to build the trust in the sales process. I think that's a big difference.
And for the trust, it's very relevant to know who is the person who is sharing it and so on. So addressing those 2 topics, I agree with John. On the other hand, you should not say that buy from me right now. Yes. But on the other hand, now the latest news in CNN today, the 14th of May, 2024, is that the GameStop share, the meme share, has gone up over 100% in just a few days because some famous avatar, whatever meme influencer profile just had to say that. And there is a crazy documentary about the this in Netflix and online about how the GameStop craze went away a few years ago in stock market in US. But it's a good example about that if a right person says the right thing, then the things go fast forward. And that relates to selling. But it's not exactly the same as reference. I always used to say that there was a reference and referral and advocacy. And these three are different things. The reference is passive. You activate this reference, for example. When you need a customer call, you give a call to this existing client and say, hey, would you like to set up, and so on. Referral means that we actively ask some existing clients to refer us to their network and their friends and so on. But it still requires us as a company to activate those people, these both referral and reference. But the advocacy, in my point of view, is exactly like this GameStop meme craze that just happened, is when your existing clients or stakeholders proactively promote you without your involvement. You just enable and orchestrate and facilitate. You don't give them what they have to say. They do it for you, and then the sales skyrocket. That's how I see the advocacy versus reference.
Yeah. I see that. That's an interesting take. So you're coming more from the customer advocacy side of things. So what's your view, Kari? Because I think that could be fascinating on the difference between the two. And do you think you can run them in one community? I have my opinion as well, but I'm curious to hear yours.
You mean employee advocacy, right?
Employee advocacy.
So now, as you know, in Europe, in certain domains, there is talent wars. And we usually refer with talent wars to the IT engineers, the artificial intelligence scientists, but also in other domains like nurses, for example, police, plumbers, completely different domains. They also have an employee shortage. So when the company can genuinely say that they have a good atmosphere, and actually better when the employee advocates and the customer advocates say that they have a good atmosphere, then the other people in those circles will notice it, right? And now the wrong way to do it is that your marketing or talent attraction manager makes a post and asks everybody to share it. That's the classic way of doing it wrong. What is best when the employees take the photo themselves and push it to Instagram because they had a great company kickoff party or they got good coffee, or, it doesn't have to cost money. It's about feeling. So we need to embrace and cultivate that culture, both in customer and employee advocacy. You cannot fake it. If you have a boring company, you have a boring company. It doesn't matter what software you buy and what consultants you take in. You are just crap. So first work on your culture and then take the consultants and software to scale.
Didn't Elon Musk have the boring company, by the way? I think he did, yeah.
But I think you raise a good point. The difference between...
It's called the boring company. Yeah.
The difference between advocacy and getting reviews, which are references. Those are two totally different domains, but there is a symbiotic relationship, and how can you how can you activate your customer base to be a source of review, whether it's on G2 or TripAdvisor or what have you. How can you augment that impact? And that is a challenge.
Yeah.
How can you turn your advocacy to actually influence review sites?
To touch on that subject in a bit more detail, we have dozens of different types of campaigns, and what you just described, Kari, is exactly one of our campaigns, like post to Instagram, etc. Still, it's very hard to adopt the customers into moving from the classic stuff into that more, it's not even more advanced stuff. It's just a different way of thinking. That's what it is. So we typically see people start with social sharing, first year, 12 months, 18 months, and then the community managers will typically start to add some additional campaigns into the mix, but it's a long process. So when we look at the earliest customers we had like 7 or 8 years ago, they really turned into this, most of them turned into this full-blown push and pull communication, and it all worked out fine. But I don't have the feeling you can't expect it from day one, because the change is to drastic for most people. So it's a process. It's always a process. And I think, especially as software vendors, it's the goal to guide them into that right direction. And they need a lot of guidance. And they don't think they need, but they do need a lot of guidance
But
on
it
that.
can also go quite fast, you know, if there's a major event happening in the industry, there is something like COVID, energy crisis, war, or something which is not directly related to your business, but it impacts your business, and you just get the audience to speak about it. That comes to the profiling and nurturing of the right personalities we just discussed earlier that John is doing so well. So I'm thinking when it comes to customer advocacy, to old school key account management from 1980s or something like that, before the CRM was even a software, that you maybe celebrate together with the client their big wins. You interview your clients constantly and ask them that, hey, do you have some great things happening in your company? And then you amplify that message. You boost your customer instead of boosting yourself. And people then notice that indirectly that, hey, you are facilitating that change. And then you also enforce and cement better your position inside that strategic big client. When it comes to employee advocacy side, that could be also that, hey, we had a great kickoff party. Hey, we won the best employee of the year award or whatever. It can be breakfast, it can be dinners. It doesn't have to cost money again. It's more about those personal things that people feel good about, because each and every one of us in audience and here, at least 1 hour, or let's say, if we are pessimistic, right? At least 10 minutes in one work week, you are happy. If you are not more happy than 10 minutes, at least 10 minutes, at a certain point, you are happy. Try to share that moment of happiness. And on the other hand, those moments of frustration, angriness, and sadness, those are called then signals for you as a salesperson, because you can find something that you can maybe help to remove the pain and get deeper into account and sell more. So I think it's all about being active and engaging with your audience and recording that data, and not mass spamming people and praying them to spray some message.
No, but
so
you make a
this
very
goes
good
against
point.
the content distribution.
You make a very good point about celebrating the successes. And I take a case that we did at Mega Deals. We took one of the clients' PlexiGrid, and we actually did an interview with them about their situation, about their case, you know, the before and the after, which they shared, and what process they went through, and why in this case, the Mega Deals approach worked and changed the way they did things, and what kind of impact that is. Turned that into a video, and then, you know, syndicated that video across, you know, various channels where people could click to view. So I think celebrating your, you know, that's another way of taking reference cases, Koen, and reflecting the successes. So it's a kind of review that you are promoting and distributing. I think the other thing that's interesting on this topic of advocacy is, how do you measure it, and how do you measure impact? And you talked yourself, Kari, is, you know, it's about sales. You know, how are you using advocacy to support the sales process, and what are the measures that are in the KPIs that you're using to guide and steer the next action? Mm-hmm. So it'd be interesting, Koen, if you could share a couple of examples on your side, how you're using KPIs and.
Yeah, and especially in the current climate, these are essential, right? People don't run these programs. Effort goes into it as well. So they're not just doing it, so they need to see a clear return on investment. And I think you have hard metrics and soft metrics. So, for example, when you go into our dashboards, you will immediately see the hard number impact that the employees have created. And that's very simple to do. You have a cost per click that you normally paid for paid advertising. That's typically it's between 5 and 10 euros for decent companies. We pay within that range as well. So we know when we want to promote something, it will cost us for just a click 5 to 10 euros. So if you can then say, and we work with a lot of large banks in Europe and insurance companies, when you can then say, for example, like, okay, this post that you normally would have promoted through your agency or to paid advertising, it would have cost you that amount of money. But now, well, by doing it through your employees who are much more trustworthy, they generated much more clicks in a more authentic way. So you actually saved, we see cases with one campaign where they saved like 40 or 50K It can be, and it's hard numbers because their performance marketing team knows, like, you can't fake those numbers. So, and you have a lot of other stuff in there, like recruitment, return on investment, for example. You can skip the recruitment agency maybe for 2 key hires. Might save you another 50K on a yearly basis. And then what we do, because as I said to Kari as well, we have dozens of different types of campaigns, but that's more the soft metrics. The question is more, what's the value of an employee telling you, I would love to work in that office in an ideation campaign? Is it 1 cent, 10 cents, €1, €10? That's something that we do together with the customer success team, together with the customers during the onboarding phases. So that takes quite some time that they can really put the numbers in, what's the value, because it has more value than you think, because they feel more attached to the brand, etc. But those soft metrics, these can go into the millions, by the way, quite quickly. But people look at them a bit differently, because but it's not like the hard metrics that we saved. It's more like so that's why I call it the soft metrics. But even when 50% of that is accurate and they picked the parameters, so then you still have a very decent business case. And typically we see that customers have a return on investment in hard metrics of X3 to X20. So that opens it up as well to do more with that community, because it's already providing value. So now let's try to do other stuff with it. And that's where we're heading into with our product. We're deeply focusing on sustainability, as we all should be doing these days. John, you're also very big into that subject. And maybe a cool anecdote is just the fact when we introduced those more sustainable rewards, because in the beginning it was all swag, but now it's more based around they can still pick the swag and the hats and whatever and the hoodies. You have to have them, the stickers. But when we switched in the first year, 93% of rewards claimed by our employees were sustainable rewards, which means the company, us, were paying good causes that we selected, etc. And the adoption went up, because people now had the feeling like, okay, I'm into this program, but I can also do something good with it. And especially younger people are very much attracted to that. And they also think about that when they pick their next job, etc. And that's what I really love about the evolution of our platform then, or the evolution in the broader space as well, that it becomes less about transactional stuff. You do this for us and we give you the hoodie. And it's more about, hey, as a company, we're supporting this bigger goal. To give you an example, we're supporting Pink Ribbon now with the company. It's not that special. A lot of companies are doing it, but we can fully do it through our own community, because we have leaderboards, collective goals, etc. So people can see like, hey, Kari and John are in front of me. You get friendly competition. So I'm walking and running a lot more. It's not that hard, by the way, because it was quite low. These days, just because of that motivation, that friendly competition from my peers, from my colleagues. And can you put a number on that? Very hard. But is it interesting? And do you feel that the team culture changes? Absolutely. Yeah.
Fascinating to hear it from your employee advocacy point of view. And if we shift to more the business development side, we're dealing with deal orchestration. So, and there it is, speaking to Kari's point, using advocacy to drive sales. Mm-hmm. The way we measure it is, because we're dealing with very much a cross-channel media kind of syndication of messaging. So what we do is we'll take, say, 20 companies, and we will launch these advocacy media campaigns. And we will look at what is the level of engagement, and we rank those 20 companies by level of engagement in terms of number of impressions, number of clicks, and so on. And we can open that up by each company and see which individuals in that company are engaging with the content. And then as a business developer, I can then develop my social selling strategy around saying, all right, those 2-3 people are really interested in what we have to say. It's now a good time for me to start reaching out to them with the little nudges and comments, and eventually figure out a way to maybe connect with them on LinkedIn or even to make a phone call. So it's really using the KPIs and the numbers to drive how the conversation can evolve over time to eventually landing some kind of meeting with a customer and eventually maybe a sale. So totally different context, still advocacy, a different way of using numbers. But it also requires a lot of behavioral change. You talked about being motivated through the social rewards that they were getting. In this case, and we've had a tough time of shifting business developers from the Rolodex method, of picking up a phone and calling to say, hey, take your time and evolve into this way of working. And it does require a shift, and it doesn't happen overnight. Yeah. But it is advocacy is a new form of ABM marketing, right? It's a different way of doing account-based marketing.
Yeah. Very.
We are almost running out of time. I would like to close the loop from my end to come a little bit from the beginning that I lifted up to you about the number of 150. The number can be even smaller, 12 or 50 or 24, you name it. The micro-influencing in the micro communities. So 10 years ago or so, it was a popular with term growth hacking and seeing Illis and other ones. Some PR and lobby professionals were speaking about news hijacking and the media kidnapping and that kind of things, riding on the trend or hot topic being discussed. Now, most likely also this applies to employee advocacy, that if you have that right kind of person, we spoke about different personalities and profiling, right? And that person shares your comment or actually makes their own comment about something that indirectly relates to you, that is then seen by that person's audience in that selective community, city, country, whatever it is, right, industry. And so it would be more important to embrace your tribe. If you are, let's say, in semiconductors in Taiwan, who are the top 50 people in semiconductors in Taiwan? Who out of those top 50 are the most curious ones, the most vocal ones? Who of them you can, like John was saying, engage in a dialogue like that instead of directly trying to sell, make an intelligent comment, add value, and then that will be noticed by the community. So they don't even have to be your clients, and you don't need to definitely give them money. They will get offended if you send them that, hey, here's a stipend or what, like a coupon for Starbucks, or we send you a coffee cup. No way. You are just having the intellectual dialogue and harnessing their ego, and the rest will fly. So it doesn't cost money, but it does cost effort. And the results can come fast, but it depends how much you put effort. So that will be very difficult for people who just want to outsource their thinking to systems and programs. They need to be in the game. And when they're in the game, then people like Koen and Ambassify or Mega Deals and John can turbo boost that. But first, they need to be in the game.
Well, and you made a very good point, and it comes back to that selection of who you engage with, because who you engage with changes who you become. So it's very important to make that choice consciously, because your time is very limited, and the amount of attention that you can give and get, and that selection is really important to make in a mindful
also
way.
In personal life, you become a bit, the people that you surround yourself with. That's also a classical thing. Okay, maybe unless there are other questions coming in that we can answer, and also respecting Kari the time frame indeed. Maybe we can close with one takeaway that we learned from each other. I like that we don't agree on everything, but we do agree on a lot of bigger topics, which was the goal for me as well, to have this talk with, for me, two of the smartest people I met in my career. So thank you for that. So what I learned, I knew it, but maybe I need to think more about it, is the profiling stuff, because you're both much more into that, and we already work with a lot of advanced segmentation options and filters, etc. But it's all very much data driven, based on data that we collect, and that we can get from the company, etc. But then you started talking about more psychological concepts, etc. Like you need to know what kind of person it is. You told exactly the same story in a different way, I think, and that was like, oh yeah, we definitely have options there that we can explore to improve that targeting next to the more product targeting. And yeah, that was my maybe my key takeaway from this pleasant conversation. maybe that you guys
Well, I
also.
was inspired by your ability to shift behavior with eco points or eco causes to get people more engaged to do employee advocacy. I was really delighted to hear that that is something that has evolved.
Yeah, and it's working not just at our company, but also at customers of ours, you know. And then it's cool to see, like, oh yeah, and then they can scale it up, you know. And then maybe touching on the first point we made, then the question is, how many people do you want to be active in these kind of campaigns? Because that changes the game a little bit, because you cannot talk about inclusion and then say like, oh, but only those 100 people can do that kind of stuff. So for us, business-wise, it might be an opportunity to broaden that group or segment it in a different way. But yeah, it's cool to see. It's still early days, but I think it will blow up completely in the next few months and years. Yeah. Any closing remarks of you, Kari?
Well, I think you are on the right track. And the best thing by engaging experts like us and your clients is that you constantly get feedback to make your Ambassify platform even better. So we are very much looking for your new release, and we hope that there's some profiling part in it.
The heat is on.
Thank you for inviting us. Let's keep the level and let's make the Ambassify the best platform on earth on advocacy.
I'm totally game for that, but the pressure is on now. I feel it could be the heat. It's a hot day in Belgium, as John knows as well, and in Sweden probably as well. But yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation, guys. To the attendees, we will also share it with you shortly. And yeah, feel free to ask any additional questions, or if you want to get the contact details. And the recording will be shared as well, obviously. So yeah, thank you so much, John. Thank you so much, Kari. Have an amazing.
Thank you so much to both of you. Very much enjoyed the conversation.
You're welcome, and speak soon, guys. Cheers. Bye-bye.